For years, John Elway's career stood as the perfect test case for how much a Super Bowl defined a player's legacy. Over more than a decade, Elway did it all on the football field. He was a magician behind the line of scrimmage, combining creativity, resilience, and arm strength to make the Broncos box office entertainment. He was the comeback king and a hometown hero, but one thing eluded him: a Super Bowl. Questions surrounding his legacy raged on, but in true Hollywood fashion, the story wasn't over. At the 11th hour, Elway got his long-awaited happy ending, and this is how it all happened. John Elway's path to greatness started during his time at Granada Hills High School in Los Angeles, California. Having moved around the country a lot because of his father's work as a football coach, it was pure luck that John ended up at the school, and his football career might never have gone ahead if the family had decided to enroll him elsewhere. You see, John was also a very keen baseball player at the time, and the only reason he decided to give football a proper chance was because of Granada Hills' football coach, Jack Neumeyer. Unlike many of the other high school football programs operating at the time, Neumeyer celebrated the quarterback position and allowed his QBs to throw the ball 30 to 40 times a game. This, combined with Elway's God-given ability, showed him a beautiful side of the game that suited him perfectly. He was free to run around like a madman behind the line of scrimmage, dancing around defenders and unfurling bombs to the end zone. And boy, was he good at it. It was a high-octane and thrilling way to play football and it captured the heart of a young Elway, encouraging him to stick it out. He told NFL Films that if it wasn't for his head coach Jack Neumeyer, his great career might have never happened. If he had gone to play high school football elsewhere, he may have ended up getting bored of handing the ball off on nearly every play and opted to go down the route of baseball instead. Having made a name for himself by passing for 5,711 yards and 49 touchdowns at high school, Elway enrolled at Stanford University, where he played baseball and football. By the time he arrived at college, he was already a highly coveted athlete on the pro stage, with the Kansas City Royals drafting him in the 1979 MLB draft. If you're wondering why he was so in demand with baseball teams despite his young age, you only have to look at his earliest days of Stanford football practice. His cannon of an arm broke the fingers of two receivers during his first official practice as a freshman, leading receivers to instead use their chests to catch his passes. Even that left a mark, though, with the ball seams imprinting a cross-like mark on their chests. This was nicknamed the Elway Cross and is a testament to one of his biggest assets, his arm strength. Despite the interest from the Royals, Elway's college career went ahead, and he didn't disappoint. Over 3 seasons as the starter, Elway passed for 8,805 yards and 71 touchdowns, setting records for nearly every Pac-10 passing and total offense category along the way. He had done more than enough to make a name for himself as the next big thing, which meant there was only one thing left for him to do. It was time for John Elway to test himself in the pros. Elway's introduction to life in the NFL came with a whole host of drama. He was in the fortunate position of being a consensus #1 overall pick, but he wasn't too happy about the team that were in pole position to select him. In fact, he hated the idea of playing for the Baltimore Colts so much that he told them not to draft him. The Colts were on a bad run of form, and their head coach Frank Kush had a reputation of being a tough man to please. Elway's team even floated the idea of him going to play baseball instead of lining up for the Colts. Nevertheless, Baltimore was determined to get their guy and stubbornly decided to draft him anyway. But Elway could be stubborn too, and with the threat of going to play baseball lingering over the situation, the Colts were forced to trade the quarterback away to the Denver Broncos. For Elway, he knew what he wanted, and he knew what he needed to make him succeed. His father, as a coach himself, also had a good idea about this kind of thing, so he felt no shame in digging in his heels and making sure he ended up in the right spot. We all know how well this decision paid off for Elway, but it wasn't the easiest of starts. By forcing the trade, the normal pressure of being the #1 overall pick was accentuated considerably, and it took its toll. Elway wanted to be the best, but this was not college anymore. The field was littered with supremely talented athletes, and he was completely put in his place as a rookie. A matchup against a vicious Steeler defense set the tone for what would be a tough year for Elway, completing just 47.5% of his passes for 1,663 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. Whatever worked at college wasn't working against the pros, which meant there was plenty of work to be done. Thankfully, Elway showed signs of improvement as a sophomore, and with every passing game and season, the mistakes became less frequent, and signs of the freewheeling creator started to emerge. He passed for 2,598 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions in 1984 before hitting a then career-high 3,891 yards and 22 touchdowns in 1985. However, that new career best was slightly overshadowed by a much less desirable career high of 23 interceptions. Quarterbacks of this era benefited from not living in the social media age. Throwing picks at the rate Elway would have had him crucified. You think he would have survived in today's game? Share your thoughts in the comments. It was in 1986 that things really started to take shape for Elway in Denver. He managed to greatly reduce his interceptions to 13, while also churning out another impressive effort of 3,485 passing yards and 19 touchdowns. The Broncos posted an 11-5 record that gave them the #1 seed in the AFC. And a divisional round win over the New England Patriots set the platform for Elway's official breakout moment. On the 11th of January, 1987, the Denver Broncos were trailing the Cleveland Browns by 7 points in the AFC Championship game with just 5 minutes to go. The prize was a spot in the Super Bowl, but with Denver's drive kicking off at their own 2-yard line, the odds were stacked against them. What followed was Elway's first real masterpiece on the NFL gridiron, picking apart the Browns' defense and slowly marching his boys up the field. A combination of precision passing and tough running from Elway put the team within reach before a perfectly placed dart to the end zone tied the game up. The meticulous 98-yard venture down the field was done under the most intense pressure against one of the league's best teams in their own stadium. The drive, as it was named, set up the unlikeliest of victories for Denver and elevated Elway to elite status. Unfortunately, another promotion up the ladder to legendary status would have to wait, as the Broncos fell to a crushing 39-20 defeat in the Super Bowl at the hands of Bill Parcells and the New York Giants. The 1987 season brought more of the same, with Elway producing some of his very best football. In just 12 regular season games, he passed for 3,198 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, also notching a career-high 304 yards and 4 more touchdowns on the ground. In doing so, he led Denver to double-digit wins once again and was awarded the NFL MVP award for his efforts. The Broncos powered their way through the playoffs, setting up another Super Bowl opportunity. This time, it was head coach Joe Gibbs, quarterback Doug Williams, and the Washington Redskins waiting for them on the big stage. And there was only one team that was ever going to emerge victorious, with the Redskins landing 42 points on an overmatched Denver defense. Denver and Elway were pretty damn good, but not quite good enough, because in 1989, a third Super Bowl appearance produced their third heartbreaking loss in 4 seasons. This time, it was an elite Niner team that swept aside the Broncos, hammering them 55-10. Despite being so close so many times, the Broncos had never felt further away. They were beaten easily in every single one of those Super Bowls, and every loss added to the already mile-high mountain of pressure. By now, Elway had a reputation for being a dynamic creator and a comeback king, but he also had a reputation for losing Super Bowls. Over the next 7 years, more opportunities came and went, with many starting to wonder whether Elway would ever win that elusive ring. In an attempt to find the winning formula, the Broncos turfed out head coach Dan Reeves, bringing in Wade Phillips for a couple of years before eventually turning to Mike Shanahan in 1995. He had done it before, and if anyone could get this team across the line, surely it was him. An 8-8 record to kick things off for Shanahan didn't bode well, but the team bounced back nicely to win 13 games and the division in 1996. Elway was still at the peak of his powers despite being in his 14th season. A 3,328-yard effort with 26 touchdowns and 14 interceptions would bring Elway his 7th Pro Bowl, but still no ring. In 1997, Elway somehow managed to step things up further. Now in his 15th season, at the age of 37, he earned his 2nd consecutive Pro Bowl and stuck the Broncos right back into the thick of it in the playoffs. This time, they battled through the wild card round, through the divisional round, and passed the Steelers in the AFC Championship game to get back to the Super Bowl. It was the first time Elway and the Broncos had been back in 8 years, and the pressure was on. All anyone could talk about was whether Elway could get the monkey off his back, or whether he would be the guy who lost 4 Super Bowls. At 37 years old, it's fair to say his legacy was on the line, and the reigning champs, the Green Bay Packers, were the team standing in the way. The Packers came into the game as heavy favorites, but this time around, the Broncos were much better prepared for the big stage. Green Bay had a weak run defense, and Denver was more than happy to tote the rock to grind them down. Elway only completed 11 passes on the day, but that didn't stop him from having a highlight play in a crucial moment. With the score tied on 3rd down near the Packers' end zone, Elway broke free from the pocket and instead of settling for the field goal, charged headfirst into 3 defenders. The 37-year-old was sent spinning, but crucially got the first down in what became remembered as the helicopter play. The Broncos would capitalize on his brave play and score a touchdown straight after to take the lead. With the score then tied again in the final stages of the 4th quarter, Elway delivered yet another clutch drive to get the team in striking distance. Terrell Davis did his bit by powering into the end zone to give the Broncos a 7-point lead that would remain untouched, locking in the win for Denver and giving Elway the Super Bowl victory that would define his career. While he wasn't needed much as a passer in the game, the images of him diving for that crucial 3rd down and coming up clutch to put his team in a position to win on the final drive are a testament to his resilience and determination to get that elusive ring. Finally, he had done it. His legacy was secure, and a spot in the Hall of Fame was all but guaranteed. But he wasn't done yet. Elway returned for one final stint, leading the Broncos to a spectacular 14-2 record in 1998, which also won him his 3rd Pro Bowl appearance in a row. For the 2nd year running, the Broncos stormed through the playoffs, and this time it would be the Atlanta Falcons and Elway's old coach Dan Reeves trying to spoil the party. They couldn't, and in this particular Super Bowl, it was 38-year-old Elway's turn to take the limelight. In what would turn out to be his final ever NFL game, Elway threw for 366 yards and a touchdown, winning the Broncos their 2nd consecutive Super Bowl title and earning him the Super Bowl MVP award along the way. You couldn't ask for a much better way to ride off into the sunset, and that's exactly what Elway did. In May 1999, he gave an emotional farewell, admitting his body could no longer withstand the grind of professional football. Elway walked away with 2 Super Bowl rings, a legacy of record-setting performances, and countless awards. To cap it all off, he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2004. Whether he won those Super Bowl rings or not, John Elway was always going to be an NFL legend. But it's a relief that he got across the line in the end. He truly deserved it. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed learning about the great John Elway. Let me know in the comments who you want to learn about next.